17.4 Transport of gases. Blood is the medium of transport for oxygen and carbon dioxide. About 97% of oxygen is transported by RBCs in the blood. The remaining 3% of oxygen is carried in a dissolved state through the plasma. Nearly 20 to 25% of carbon dioxide is transported by RBCs, whereas 70% of it is carried as bicarbonate. About 7% of carbon dioxide is carried in the dissolved state through plasma. 17.4.1 Transport of oxygen. Hemoglobin is a red colored iron containing pigment present in the RBCs. O2 can bind with hemoglobin in a reversible manner to form oxyhemoglobin. Each hemoglobin molecule can carry a maximum of 4 molecules of oxygen. Binding of oxygen with hemoglobin is primarily related to partial pressure of oxygen, partial pressure of carbon dioxide, hydrogen ion concentration, and temperature are the other factors which can interfere with this binding. A sigmoid curve is obtained when percentage saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen is plotted against the partial pressure of oxygen. This curve is called the oxygen dissociation curve, figure 17.5, and is highly useful in studying the effect of factors like partial pressure of carbon dioxide, hydrogen ion concentration, etc. on binding of oxygen with hemoglobin. In the alveoli, where there is high partial pressure of oxygen, low partial pressure of carbon dioxide, lesser H plus concentration and lower temperature, the factors are all favorable for the formation of oxyhemoglobin. Whereas in the tissue, where low partial pressure of oxygen, high partial pressure of carbon dioxide, high H plus concentration and high temperature exist, the conditions are favorable for dissociation of oxygen from the oxyhemoglobin. This clearly indicates that oxygen gets bound to hemoglobin in the lung surface and get dissociated at the tissue. Every 100 ml of oxygenated blood can deliver around 5 ml of oxygen to the tissues under normal physiological conditions. 17.4.2 Transport of carbon dioxide. CO2 is carried by hemoglobin as carbaminohemoglobin, about 20 to 25%. This binding is related to the partial pressure of carbon dioxide. Partial pressure of oxygen is a major factor which could affect this binding. When partial pressure of carbon dioxide is high and partial pressure of oxygen is low, as in the tissues, more binding of carbon dioxide occur, whereas when the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is low and partial pressure of oxygen is high, as in the alveoli, dissociation of CO2 from carbaminohemoglobin takes place. That is, carbon dioxide, which is bound to hemoglobin from the tissue, is delivered at the alveoli. RBCs contain a very high concentration of the enzyme carbonic anhydrase, and minute quantities of these same is present in the plasma too. This enzyme facilitates the following reaction in both directions. At the tissue site, where partial pressure of CO2 is high due to catabolism, CO2 diffuses into blood, RBCs and plasma and forms SCO3 negative and H plus. At the alveolar site, where partial pressure of carbon dioxide is low, the reaction proceeds in the opposite direction, leading to the formation of CO2 and H2O. Thus, CO2 trapped as bicarbonate at the tissue level and transported to the alveoli is released out as CO2. Figure 17.4. Every 100 ml of deoxygenated blood delivers approximately 4 ml of CO2 to the alveoli.